Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hey, it is the top of the hour right now. I would like to give just a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, for anybody kind of coming in a little bit late to join us, get settled in, and make sure everything is functioning properly. So if you don't mind holding on just for a minute, we will be right back. And yeah, appreciate you guys joining us today, and we'll get started here very shortly. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hey, thank you for joining us, everybody, for this webinar about filing 1099s with Rentec and Nelco. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our agenda. We will do a brief introduction, talk about a little bit who Nalco is. We'll talk through some basics of 1099s, 1099 due dates and changes, including upcoming changes. We'll walk through Nalco and Rentec services. And finally, we'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. If you have questions as the webinar is going on, go ahead and put them into the questions bar if you don't want to forget them. I might cover them as time goes, but like I said, if you have a burning question that you don't want to forget, go ahead and put that into that questions bar of the GoToWebinar, and we'll make sure to answer it by the end, if not sooner. So again, thank you for joining us. Just a quick note of warning, I do have a little bit of a cold. So if you, I'm gonna do my best to mute myself if I have to cough or anything, but so if you hear a little bit of a silence for a second, apologize for that. So I'll do my best to kind of keep things flowing here quickly. So appreciate your guys' patience with that. So really quick, a brief introduction. I am Jason Jennison. I am the Partner Relationship Manager here at Nelco. Who's Nelco? You guys may not know us. Nelco, we think about W-2, 1099 reporting year round. Specifically with Rentec, we're focused on 1099s, 1099 miscellaneous forms. We think about, like I said, year round. As soon as this season ends, we'll start looking at next season. We'll start thinking about how our systems and our forms are compatible with our different partner softwares and make sure that those systems are functioning well together, talking to each other properly. Also, we'll make sure that everything is compliant with the IRS in any states and everything is functioning properly to make sure that you guys have a smooth filing season. So rather than sit here and look at me, I should also mention Catherine from Rentec is on the line too, that she will be available to answer any Rentec specific questions that I don't have insight to. So hopefully she will be, hopefully you won't need that, but if you do, she is available as well. Also should mention, we will have copies of the slides and recording of the webinar available after the webinar is done, so you guys can link out to that. Don't have to memorize everything right now. So moving on, some really quick basics on 1099 miscellaneous. So what is this form and who needs to file the form 1099 miscellaneous? And basically a form 1099 miscellaneous must be filed by any individual or entity that has paid out $600 or more in rents or services performed by a trade or business by people not treated as its employees. If you have an employee and you're paying them, those wages and taxes withheld get tracked on Form W-2. Most of you probably receive a W-2 from your employer on a regular basis, or on a yearly basis, I should say. However, a 1099 is used to communicate that income and and taxable information to the IRS, states, and individuals for people not treated as their employees. There's some really specific rules that I'm not going to get into from the IRS of who can be considered an employee and who must be considered a 1099 vendor. But again, if somebody's your employee, W-2. If they're not your employee, a 1099. $600 or more is that magic number. If it's under $600, don't have to worry about it. But if it's over $600, just be sure to make sure that you get them a 1099 miscellaneous. A couple other less common times when you need to file a 1099 miscellaneous is if you paid at least $10 in royalties or broker payments in lieu of dividends or tax-exempt interest, or if you withheld federal income tax under backup withholding rules. Again, the first one is the big one. It's the one that requires most people to file a 1099 miscellaneous. So that's the one we tend to focus on. So when don't you need to file a 1099? If the amount is less than $600, you are all set. Don't have to worry about it. The IRS doesn't care about anything less than $600. So as long as you keep it under $600, no 1099 needed. If the payment's made to a corporation, you do not need to file a 1099 miscellaneous. Corporations are taxed differently than private individuals, and they need to be treated as such, so you do not need to send a 1099 miscellaneous to any corporations. Now, the other thing is that if the payment is made for the purchase of goods instead of services, so if you go to the local hardware store and buy something, you don't have to worry about sending a 1099 for that. That you're purchasing a good, an actual product, as opposed to a service. What we're really trying to track here, what the IRS is trying to track here, is something that would be considered an employee's income or somebody's personal income, not necessarily how much they sold or their gross receipts. So that's a kind of a brief breakdown of when don't you need to file a 1099. So really quick, moving on, filing deadlines for the 2019 filing season. And 2019 filing season means for the year 2019, that's typically filed in January. And basically you have to have everything postmarked to recipients by January 31st, 2020. If you are mailing it into the IRS, postmarked to the IRS by February 28th, 2020. And if you're electronically filing to the IRS, it needs to be transmitted to the IRS by March 31st, 2020. Should mention that that Rentec only supports electronic filing, so you do have until March 31st. Should also state that different states have different deadlines, so there are some varying state deadlines to meet with 1099 filing. Now, the IRS a couple of years ago implemented some new, more tighter deadlines for W-2s and any 1099 miscellaneous that has information in box 7. And so those 1099s that have information in box 7 have some different due dates. It still has to be postmarked to the recipients by January 31st. However, if you're mailing to the IRS, it has to be by January 31st, and if you're electronically filing to the IRS, it also has to be by January 31st. Basically, it all has to be in by January 31st. What does all this add up to in terms of filing dates? At the end of the day, my recommendation is always to get everything done by January 31st. It kind of makes things easy, gets everything done, and moves things along. A significant number of people have information in box 7 for the 1099, so they're going to have the earlier filing deadline anyway. So I don't recommend staggering things, to be honest with you. It's going to save you a lot of headache and mental space to simply get it all done by January 31st. And we talked about 1099 miscellaneous box 7. That box 7 is labeled non-employee compensation. Now, the 1099 miscellaneous, really quick, is kind of a catch-all form, right? There's some wacky stuff on there. Fishing boat proceeds is one of them. And so anytime you have a form labeled miscellaneous, it does tend to be kind of a hodgepodge. Well, the IRS has identified that box 7, and they have decided, and this is for this coming year, or not the current year, they're going to be filing for 2019, but for 2020 filing year, that will be in January of 2021, they're creating a 1099 NEC. And again, this is not for this year. This is looking ahead to next year. Basically, what they did with the 1099 NEC is they pulled box 7 off the 1099 Miscellaneous, and they created basically its own form called the NEC. And by created, they actually reinstated a form that was around a long time ago. IRS has estimated that 70% of 1099 Miscellaneous forms have non-employee compensation reported in box 7. That is that's the box that determines whether or not you have an earlier due date or not. So again, chances are you will have a 1099 NEC obligation next year. You don't really need to worry about it right now. Rentec and Nalco will have you covered. We are working, and we will be working in the coming year to make sure that your filing needs are covered, working closely with them, both of us together, to make sure that that thing's working well. But just something to be aware of. Next year, when you go to file your 1099s, you'll likely have some miscellaneous and some NEC, where you just had miscellaneous before. Like I said, 70% of these are going out. So odds are you are going to have some reporting requirements. And again, we're all going to have you covered, so no need to worry about it. However, just be aware, something that's coming up. We like to keep people informed as we go here. So that kind of covers some 1099 basics. Really, there wasn't a whole lot of changes to the 1099 form this year itself. It's pretty kind of a quiet year. However, that's leading up to some significant changes next year. So that kind of covers 1099 basics. Wanted to move ahead and talk about what it takes to file a 1099 through Rentec and Nalco. And what you're seeing here is we have the Rentec site up here that you're probably pretty familiar with. So to file your 1099s, so you get to January and everything looks correct in your Rentec system, start by clicking Settings, and then come down to Utilities. Find it that says 1099 e-file and print, and it'll tell you right there, connect to Nalco to e-file pre-populated 1099 miscellaneous forms. More info and costs are available right there. But if you click on that, you're going to be brought to a list of your vendors and owners that you have payments made out to. And as you can see, all of these payments are over $600. This is filing for tax year 2019. And if you want to check on your previous filings, go ahead and click right here. It'll bring you out to the dashboard. So for now, as you can tell, we're missing some information from companies like Rough Cut and John Doe. Missing a lot of information here in terms of their tax IDs. Would highly recommend you get those things resolved before you move on. However, for whatever reason, we're just going to move ahead with ABS Landscaping and Johnson Investments. So once we have those selected, we are going to continue to the next step. And this will start launching the Nalco portal. And again, we're going to initiate that e-file. It'll bring to Nalco. I'm going to go ahead and move over to our test environment just to make sure that everything is functioning well here. So if you have never logged in with us before and this is your first time, make sure to go ahead and come down here to create account. Creating an account is basically going to ask you for some really simple, basic information, nothing too crazy, no IRS specific information on this, just your first and last name, your address, city, state, and zip, of course. Also your phone number, email address, and we're going to ask you to confirm that email address and password. Email address and password are the critical ones. So those are the ones that are going to determine your login with Nalco. So I highly recommend making that something that's easily memorable and an email address that is highly functioning and available to be used. So we're just going to go back to filing home. I have already created a login. And by the way, if you create a login for the first time and you just transmitted some things out there, you might have to go back to Rentec after you create your login and re-click it. Just kind of, unfortunately, one of those little glitchy things that sometimes happens with our system. So for some reason you create a login, you log in and there's nothing there. Don't worry, just go back to Rentec and redo that, and we'll get that working for you. And I am going to log in. And first screen you come to is going to be this screen called Forms in Progress. And basically this screen is going to select the services that you want Nalco to provide for you. The name of the company is listed right here, Management World, in the gray bar. The form we're filing is the 1099 Miscellaneous, and we're showing those two records that we sent over, ABS Landscaping and Johnson Investments. And as you can see, if you check or uncheck, the check marks will basically indicate what exactly we are going to be performing for services on your behalf. So you'll also see that these check marks to the right here under federal filing, state filing, recipient copy will appear or disappear based on what services I select. So going through these one by one, federal filing, we're going to send these to the IRS on your behalf. No need to fill out a 1096 form. No need to go out to the IRS website. No need to get any additional information from the IRS. We got you covered. Just go ahead and click federal e-filing. State filing, we are going to send it to whatever states require filing. In this case, we have the state of Oregon. However, if there's any other state that requires filing, you will see that pop up right here. If you're in a state that does not require filing, you won't see anything pop up there. If you have kind of a mixed bag where some of the recipients require filing to certain states and some don't, you'll see some of them checked and some of them not checked. Don't worry, we'll only charge you for the services we actually perform. So if there is any discrepancy in whether state filing is required or not, no worries, we are going to be only charging for those services. Finally, recipient mail and online retrieval. We are going to print and mail these forms directly out to the 1099 recipients. You don't have to print anything. You don't have to mail anything. No licking stamps or envelopes, no stuffing anything and making sure that things are showing through on windows or anything like that. Nalco will take care of the printing and mailing right there. Up here, we have bundles for the services. Again, federal and state e-filing, recipient mail, online retrieval. We'll talk about online retrieval in a minute, just so you know. This one just does not have state filing. Some people prefer to do their state filing separately, so we have a separate bundle there. But in general, we think it's easier just to go ahead and do everything together. So we're going to go ahead and click next. I mentioned before about the online retrieval. In this case, Johnson Investments at jjinvest@mail.com, for example, will be receiving an email, and the email will say, thank you for, or here we have a copy of your 1099 available. Click here, put in the last 4 digits of their social security number or their EIN, whichever one was used, and they can access their 1099 electronically. This is in addition to them printing and mailing their forms out to them directly. Just another way to deliver it, sometimes delivered a little bit quicker, and it also comes in handy on the back end in case somebody's missing a 1099. In this case, you see no email address under ABS Landscaping. No big deal. We'll just print and mail their forms. It still meets all the IRS guidelines. And the resend function will be available to them a little bit later. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So again, email address there, email address not there, no big deal. You can edit these right here. Just go ahead and change anything you need to change, but be aware this does not reflect back into Rentec. So anything you change here, I highly recommend you going back into Rentec and completing. And then we come to the submit form screen. If you have any questions about how these forms are going to look, I'd highly recommend clicking preview forms, because once you get to submit forms, nothing's going to happen to these forms unless you delete them or complete the filing. So you can pause right here, take a deep breath, make sure that everything looks good before you proceed. You can click preview forms, and this is going to generate a PDF of exactly what information is going to be on these forms when we send it out. So again, this is your check. Go ahead and take a minute, print these out. If you need the paper copy, save the PDF and look at it later. Again, your forms are safe here until you actually come in and either delete them or complete the filing. But this is just a great way to make sure that this information is accurate. Another great way to do and compare is a summary report, which will be a PDF of all the totals of all those boxes that you can then reference back to your records and make sure look correct. So again, the summary report, preview forms, checks for you guys to make sure that everything looks good. Once you're ready to go and everything does look good, you have all your forms in here and you're ready to proceed, go ahead and click next. If you have never filed with us before, you'll need to go ahead and click add a card. And I should mention at this point, we do not store any credit card information. We do have a secure third party offsite that stores this information. We only see the last 4 digits of the credit card, and we do allow you to edit it. However, just be aware that we don't store this information due to security concerns. We have a very secure third party that go ahead and does that. So I'm going to go ahead and put some credit card information in. I'm going to say we're doing a Visa. Sorry about that, folks. Give me just 1 second. And this credit card information. Sorry, guys. Give me just 1 second to get that valid credit card in there. There we go. All right, there we go. Sorry about that brief pause on the credit card information. And this errored. I'm not sure why. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, sorry about that. Having a few technical difficulties here. Please pause. All right, so sorry about that. All right, the credit card is in, everything is up and running here, and we are good to go. If for some reason you don't have a credit card or you need some alternate billings, go ahead and give us a call. We have could give you a prepaid filing code. Basically, this is like a 17-digit code that works like a gift card. You put money onto it, money comes off of it. You do have the prepaid filing code option available to you if for some reason you need some alternate billing other than a credit card. Credit card's a little bit easier, to be honest with you, but you can also use that prepaid filing code if need be. Once everything is good to go, go ahead and click Pay and Submit. And I want to pause here and just say, clicking Pay and Submit is that point of no return. And we have up here a little note that basically says, once you submit your forms, we cannot stop the filing or printing. It's just like dropping your forms in a mailbox. And I don't mean your home mailbox, I mean the mailbox of the post office. Once you drop something in there, it's gone and it's on its way. Same thing, we're going to start, as soon as you click Pay and Submit, what we're going to do is we will start getting those forms ready to print. We're going to start electronically filing them with the IRS, and it kind of just kicks off a whole bunch of processes that once it starts, it's really impossible to stop. So please, before you click Pay and Submit, make sure that everything is good and you are ready to file. And ta-da, congratulations, you have successfully filed your return. What we're going to do, we're going to e-file these forms to the IRS. We are going to file these forms to the states. We're going to mail these forms to the recipients. We're going to post them in online retrieval. That's the email functionality. And we also have these forms available in PDF right here. If you need to print this page or print the receipt for your records, you can do so at the bottom of the page there. So one quick thing I should mention is that from Rentec, if you click here to visit the Nalco dashboard, you are going to be brought to a screen that looks just like this. And this is your filing home screen. And filing home, you can click on Form Filing History, and this will bring up a list of all the filings that you have performed with Nelco. You will be receiving an email that basically says, hey, thank you for filing. But if you ever have any questions about your statuses, you can click this little check status. And this is going to tell you exactly what's happening with each one of the services that you selected. So federal filing, state filing, recipient mail, online retrieval. Whenever we actually mail those forms out, you'll get a status update via email, but you can also come in here and check that status here as well. Again, you will be receiving all these statuses via email. This is just an additional check for you. If you want to print or save PDF copies, I do recommend saving PDF copies as record copies. Go ahead and select those copies, click next after you click that printer icon, and say you want a payer copy for your records, click download, and you will receive a PDF of those forms. You can go ahead and save this PDF anywhere. If you want to print it, you can, but I do recommend saving that PDF somewhere. It will be available for a few years here in Nalco's records. We do keep everything for all the records for 7 years per IRS standards, but it's always nice to have a PDF copy of your own as well. If you need to make corrections to those forms, just go ahead and click on this little corrections icon. It's going to walk you through the whole process. But the other thing I wanted to point out is if somebody is missing or has lost their 1099, not a correction needs to be made, but just they just lost it or they haven't received it, go ahead and click on this little envelope icon. And again, jjinvest@mail.com. Say that Johnson Investments called and says they never got their 1099. And they're going to say, well, we mailed one to you, or we had one mailed to you, and we also sent it to jjinvest@mail.com, and they say, it's actually supposed to be jjinvest@gmail.com. Put that Gmail in there and click send email, and that will automatically send a new copy or a new link to jjinvest@gmail.com where they can download that form electronically. Just a little bit easier than printing and mailing a copy out to them. So I'd highly recommend using this for doing replacement copies. So that pretty much sums up the form filing history and the Nalco portal in general. And so with that, I am going to really quick pop up the contact Nalco screen. To contact your Nalco rep, if you have questions, 800-266-4669, Nalco@nalcosolutions.com, www.nalcosolutions.com. By the way, you can also order checks that work with your Rentec software at nalcosolutions.com. And there's also a chat functionality if you have any questions that you would like to address over chat. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and move on to questions. If you guys don't mind, I am just going to pause just for a second, take a breath, and gather up these questions and do my best to answer them here. So if you don't mind just bearing with me for a minute, that would be great. All right, a couple questions coming in. When emailing, does the recipient receive instructions on how to open? Yeah, it's really a pretty straightforward email. There's a link, they click on that link and then they put in the last 4 digits of their tax ID number, and then it's available right there for them to access. So it's really simple. All those instructions on how to use it are really easy with the recipient. So it's just a great tool to get them their 1099 a little bit faster. A question came in, what is the cost? That's always a question and I always fail to cover it. Best way to find cost information, by the way, is if you click out to the Nalco dashboard, you can come out and click on how it works up here at the top. And the how it works page will have all of the pricing available. Pricing is dependent on what service you select and also how many 1099s you're filing. And so that grid is right there so you can see the per unit price of your 1099 filing. The other thing I was going to say, if you really are wondering how much exactly it's going to be, maybe you have some people that are filing to states and some people that aren't, just go ahead and upload your forms into Nalco. You can get a pretty good idea then once it gets in there about how much that cost is going to be. It doesn't cost you anything to upload to Nalco or create an account with us. All you have to do is create that account, upload into our system, and you'll see that pricing on the left-hand toolbar beneath the services you select. And that's probably the easiest way, honestly, to get a quote for exactly how much it's going to be. Also, our reps would be happy to work with you to get you an exact quote as far as the costs are going to be. But if you just want to see the pricing grid, that's available out here on that How It Works page. So a question came in, how early can we do this if we only have a few 1099s? How early? I believe you can do it right now. If you are all done and confident that you're not going to have any more to file for the year, we are open and ready to go. So feel free to go ahead and get those done. The IRS isn't open to receiving 1099s yet. However, we will go ahead and hold them until they do open and then send them out. So go ahead and start filing whenever you're ready and whenever you have all your info available. Do we have to do the mail option, or can we just pull the online? So the online retrieval functionality works as part of the total recipient delivery package that does include print and mail. There is no ability to only do the online delivery. There's some very, very strict IRS standards on how to what constitutes acceptable uses of online delivery, including opt-in and certain access. So we print and mail a copy to make sure that that IRS standard is met, and that's kind of a part of a whole package of the recipient delivery forms. It's not a standalone service. Will the seminar be available offline later? Yes, we are doing a recording here, so we will make that recording available. Is 1099 miscellaneous required for legal services paid out for your businesses totaling over $600? And the answer is yes. Definitely is. It is required for legal services. So a question came in. Looks like somebody has recently been working for a landlord, haven't divulged their social security number or their EIN, typically on that W-9 form. So yeah, that's a tough one. What should you do? Should you reach out to the IRS? Yes, definitely. Go ahead and do that. It doesn't help you much now, but in general, what I always say is don't cut them a check until you get the tax information that you need. Withholding payment is a great way to motivate people. I know that's not always possible, but just in general, I always like to tell people until you have the tax information that you need to correctly file a 1099, don't send a check out. Lord that over them and use that as leverage. And again, I know that's not always possible, but wherever possible, try to get that information up front, because getting it on the back end and cleaning everything up can be a real scramble in January. So yes, I would recommend putting some pressure on that organization in that case. But again, best way to avoid that in the future is to not get into it. So somebody said some of our contractors buy materials and bill us for labor and materials together. Are we responsible for splitting out the labor only and putting that on the 1099? Or are they responsible for listing the materials as deductions on their taxes? You are responsible, I believe, for splitting that information out in terms of the information, I'm sorry, of the labor versus materials when you are submitting that 1099. Just to clarify, somebody asked, so you send the form to the IRS both in hard copy and electronically? No, we only send the form in electronically. We do not send paper copies to the IRS unless for some reason the IRS has some questions that they need answered, at which point we would. But just as a course of practice, we only send forms electronically to the IRS. So question here. Is the amount filed for each owner the total of rent collected, or the amount paid out to each owner minus management fees and other expenses? That is probably a little bit more in the weeds than I am comfortable going into. I would say in general, you do want to total everything up for each recipient of the 1099 and make sure that data is completed on one 1099 form. So for example, if I have somebody that I make multiple payments to through the course of a year, you don't want to send them multiple 1099s. You want to send one 1099 with all the totals summed up on that 1099 for the calendar year. Hope that answers that question. Do I need to send 1099 to companies who are licensed and bonded corporations? Generally speaking, corporations do not need to receive 1099s. There was also a question coming in about LLCs, and LLCs get a little bit sticky because at times they can be functioning and taxed as corporations, and sometimes they're functioning and taxed as individuals. In general, if it's an LLC, I would say go ahead and send that 1099 to them, unless you know for 100% sure that they are billed as a corporation or they are taxed as a corporation, then don't. But in general, I would say when in doubt, go ahead and send the 1099 and they can sort that out later. Because in general, LLCs, you do want to send a 1099 to. However, again, there's some circumstances when you wouldn't, but when in doubt, I would go ahead and send the 1099. And again, there are a lot of questions coming in, so I apologize if I can't get to all of them at this time. I am doing our best to get through that here. But yeah, we'll do our best to get all these answered. One second here. Somebody asked about doing a landlord tax withholding filing, Form 1042 CA Form 592. We do not currently do those. The only form that Rentec currently works with is that 1099 Miscellaneous. We are going to be working together on that NEC form next year. So I would encourage you guys to go ahead and reach out to your accountant on that, or Catherine, I don't know if you guys have any other resources regarding some additional state forms or landlord withholding forms.
Yeah, we usually refer them to their accountant if there's any other forms that they need to submit.
All right, thank you very much.
And while you're reviewing those questions that you received, I just want to make sure that to let our clients know that we do have a 1099 tax assistant report in Rentec. It gives you the rental income, which is the gross rents per each owner, as well as the distribution. So I do know across the board, I get different requests from our clients. Please consult with your accountant on what you're supposed to report, but we do give you both numbers, the rental income gross as well as the owner disbursements, which would be minus the expenses.
Great, thank you, Catherine. One other question coming through, when do you have to have everything signed up with Nalco by? In general, with Nalco, you can file up until 8:00 p.m. Eastern time on January 31st, that deadline day. So as long as you see that screen that says congratulations by 8:00 p.m. Eastern time on January 31st, you should be good to go to meet all those deadlines. I don't necessarily recommend waiting until January 31st. I would definitely go out there sooner. There is a surcharge, $1 per filing for using it on that last day. It is our busiest day, and as you can imagine, it's a mad scramble. The entire month of January is, but especially that last day. We do our best to stay open as long as we can, and 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, you get it to us, and we will print and mail them out that day to meet the IRS requirements. So again, don't recommend waiting, but if you find yourself in a pinch, maybe you missed a 1099, go ahead and get this done before 8 p.m. on that January 31st deadline, and we will still go ahead and get those out. One second, I'm just going through and see if there's any other questions I can answer really quick on here. What happens if you have to file one after the deadline? That's a great question. So if you get after January 31st and maybe you missed, again, I mentioned, you missed one and you have to go late if you're after the deadline. My advice in that case is do it as soon as possible. Go ahead and use it the exact same way that you would be before the deadline. Our service stays open year round, and we'll be filing 2019 forms through December of 2020. So if you find yourself post deadline and you have not completed a 1099 filing, go ahead and do it right away. One question I always get with this is, where do I go to pay the fine? People just want to get that fine with the IRS over with. And unfortunately, there isn't any place for the IRS to just go pay the fine. Wait for them to go ahead and mail you a letter to assess that fine. And they'll go ahead and do so if they want any additional fine funds from you. That being said, sometimes the IRS can be pretty lenient on their deadlines. Sometimes they'll give some degree of grace to you after the filing deadline. I don't recommend testing that if you don't have to. But if for some reason you do find yourself post January 31st, you have 1099 still to file, just get them done as soon as you can. Again, you can go through Nelco's process the same exact way, and we'll get them out for you right away. So don't wait, but just go ahead and get them done and know that our service will be functioning year round. So obviously busiest time is in January, but we are open to be working this year round. So with that, I am showing it's 40 minutes past the hour, which usually I'm finding somewhere in the 30 to 40 minute range is about how much most people can handle listening to me talk about 1099 accounting and reporting. So with that, I am going to go ahead and conclude. Catherine, if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in. But I appreciate you guys coming with us through this and walking through this. Apologize for a couple of technical glitches there. And we will be talking to you soon. Looking forward to hearing from you guys, your Nalco reps. You do have a dedicated account manager here at Nalco. We'd be happy to work with you and figure out how you can make your 1099 filing season the easiest it's ever been. So appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you guys. Thank you.